Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My heartfelt thanks to you all for gathering in my hall to join me in gazing boldly toward the future. Truth be told, I should not need to introduce myself, but I shall indulge in the formality nonetheless. I am Phoebus Apollo, the sun god, the central star of our solar system. Therefore, it is only natural that I find myself at the center of attention. That I have been asked to deliver the opening address is entirely fitting. Today we are graced by representatives from all 18 faculties, and, if I may flatter myself, I'm something of an expert on nearly everything. Feel free to seek my guidance in matters of medicine, music, art, poetry, and moral virtue. I am sure my fellow gods will try to convince you of their superior knowledge, but I possess one distinct advantage over all who will address you today. I am the god of prophecy. Therefore, I shall spare us all the customary expressions of hope and aspiration for the future of artificial intelligence. Why? Because it is my divine prerogative to proclaim that the future is already here. With the grand inauguration of the AI-HUB at LMU, we stand at the threshold of extraordinary advancements in AI, poised to achieve remarkable progress. My deepest thanks go to all who made this moment possible, and to everyone who, as I foresee, will dedicate themselves wholeheartedly to advancing AI in research, teaching, and outreach.
Dear Dr. Marin, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this today's grand opening ceremony of the AI-HUB at LMU. Welcome, herzlich willkommen. A special, yes. A special welcome and my heartfelt thanks goes to the State Minister, Dr. Fabian Marin, and to the Bavarian state government, and we have many representatives here today, for their support in the field of artificial intelligence within the framework of the high-tech agenda and beyond. The high-tech agenda is highly visible nationwide and internationally, and puts Bavarian University in an outstanding position to conduct research in the field of artificial intelligence. I would also like to welcome my colleagues from the Technical University of Munich, Vice President Kramer, lieber Gerhard, and Professor Theis, lieber Fabian, who is also the chairman of the Bavarian AI Council. But let me also welcome my colleagues at LMU. And I will start with Professor Armin Assey, the chairman of the Board of University Representatives, the vice presidents, Hans van Es, Oliver Jaraus, and of course, all the deans who are today present here. AI-HUB at LMU is a grassroots initiative that brings together all the 18 faculties at LMU Munich, and which highlights not only research in AI, but also teaching and transfer. For this tremendous effort, I would like to thank all participants here, and especially the 3 initiators and spokespersons of this AI-HUB at LMU, Professor Coutinhot, liebe Gitta, Professor Kreuter, liebe Frauke, and Professor Eiche-Hüllemeier. And of course, a special welcome and thank to our collaborators and sponsors, the Munich Center for Machine Learning, the Biosphere, the Bavarian AI Network, and of course, the Münchner Universitätsgesellschaft, who supports the AI-HUB at LMU and sponsors 2 annual AI prizes, which will be awarded later today. Thank you and welcome to the chairman, Professor Peter Höppe. Dear all, the list of distinguished guests today is really very long, so allow me to welcome all researchers, scholars from near and far, students, administrators, representatives of the Bavarian state ministries, and our industry partners. And of course, welcome to all members of the AI-HUB at LMU, from PhD students to postdocs and professors. And after this long list of welcoming, let me now say some very few words. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the world. It transforms every facet of modern life, science and technology. It drives innovation and scientific breakthroughs. Our university, the LMU Munich, offers a unique perspective on AI. As a comprehensive research university, our university offers ideal conditions to explore and implement AI's transformative potentials from different perspectives, spanning disciplines such as computer science, statistics, linguistics, philosophy, economics, medicines, and beyond. And the AI-HUB at LMU plays a fundamental role in it. It serves as a central platform to consolidate and promote AI activities across the disciplines. It positions LMU as a leading scientific hub in the ongoing AI revolution and as a driving force in shaping future digital societies in Germany and Europe. And this is of paramount importance because only by advancing cutting-edge research on responsible AI across disciplines, we can help shape a future where technology serves humanity and democratic values. We, at LMU, we want to have a role and a say in it, don't we? So I would like to conclude by thanking again the initiators of the AI-HUB at LMU for facilitating an inclusive, open AI community here at LMU, and for having put together such an incredible, interesting, and exciting program for this grand opening. I wish you all the best for this today's ceremony and for the future of the AI-HUB at LMU. Thank you.
Well, dear Mrs. Vice President, Professor Biagini, in the name of all the Vice Presidents of the LMU, which are together with us tonight, dear Mr. Professor Nassihi, in your role as the head of the Senate, he might be the second guy with the most beautiful haircut in the room tonight besides me. Dear Professor Thijs Fabian, a nice first name by the way, who is the head of our Bavarian AI Council, and especially tonight, of course, dear Professors Coutinhoc, Kreuter and Schüllermeier as the spokesmen of our new AI-HUB at the LMU. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, good evening to all of you in this really great location. I'm deeply convinced that this is one of the most wonderful university buildings in Germany, in Europe, and yes, in the whole world. It's really a pleasure for me to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. And it is a pleasure because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply convinced that what we are doing tonight, opening this new AI-HUB at the LMU in the heart of our Bavarian Heimat of High-Tech in our capital here in Munich, is a very important step into a very right direction at a very, very right time. What do I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's have a look at what is happening out there in the world at the moment. We are witnessing a big AI revolution, which is, no doubt about that, the big industrial revolution of our time. Especially generative AI will change our way of living, our way of working, our way of learning. Yes, almost every part of our lives fundamentally over the next years. And what I'm worried about having a look at that is to see how different regions in the world are facing this common global challenge at the moment. Have a look at what is happening in Asia, what is happening in China at the moment. Let me just give you the buzzword DeepSeek, this new company which entry into the market costed global giants like NVIDIA incredible $590 billion just over the last days. Or let's have a look at the USA. Let me give you the buzzword Stargate. They are investing incredible $500 billion at the moment just into the idea to get at the forefront of the big AI revolution of our times. Yes, and what I'm worried about now, ladies and gentlemen, is when we have a look at what is happening in Europe at the same time. What are we having, talking about DeepSeek in Asia, talking about Stargate in USA? Well, we are having something as well. What we have is the AI Act. We are having 100+ rules as regulations for the digital space, and this is killing our global competitiveness at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply convinced we are standing at a crossroads at the moment. Europe is having a kind of a Sputnik moment in those days. The truth is, we are standing at the sidelines of the global race, and we are watching actors from Asia, actors from the US, how they are dividing the global digital markets of the future amongst each other. And this must end. Lately, Stargate and the things that happened, having a look at DeepSeek, must be a final wake-up call for Europe, having a look at these AI markets of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, if we want Germany not to be the sick man and the old man on top, having a look at the demographic situation of Europe once again, then we have to understand at least two things. First thing we have to understand is that slowing down the recession of the markets of the old economy won't bring us new growth. Slowing down the recession of the old economy won't bring us new growth. What we need for new growth are new ideas for new markets. The world has moved on, ladies and gentlemen. We are living in a time in which Apple has 60 times more worth than the whole Daimler AG. We are living in a time in which Microsoft will invest only in the next 6 months, only in one future technology, AI, more money than the whole annual sales of the BASF. We are living in times in which 0.7% of the shares of NVIDIA have more worth than the whole Salzgitter AG. And this means that it's completely clear where the sound of the future is set. The sound of future prosperity is set in the digital economy. And ladies and gentlemen, this diagnosis is a good one for our country. Why is it a good one for our country? Because we are a country with no resources. We are not sitting on oil or gas like others do. We are a country with high wages. We are a country with too high energy prices, and we are a country in a dramatic demographic situation. And that means that our only chance for the future is to be at the forefront of tech, to be at the forefront of innovation, to be at the forefront of research. This is our only chance to bring the prosperity of this country into the future. The prosperity of our homeland grows in the brains of the people who are living there, and that's why we have to have this vision to be at the forefront of tech, and that's why it's so important that we are top and pretty good and at the forefront of research in AI, as you will be in this new AI-HUB here at the LMU. The second thing we have to understand in Germany, in Bavaria and in Europe, is that we need a minimum size of European digital sovereignty. And I want you to understand me in the right way. This does not mean that we would need this European sovereignty in the sense of self-sufficiency or in the sense of autarky. It's neither possible nor desirable to have all the software and all the hardware for the digital age and the AI revolution here in Bavaria and Germany or in Europe. But what we need in the sense of a digital sovereignty is to be independent enough to make our own decisions. We have to stay the decision makers. There should not be a third party who is in the situation because of dependencies to say what our decision must be. We must be the ones who are able to decide between different alternatives. This must be our lessons learned, having a look at the dependencies from cheap energy from Russia and having a look at all what is happening at Ukraine at the moment. Having a look at all these insights, ladies and gentlemen, the Bavarian state government I'm speaking for has a pretty clear mission. We want Bavaria to be Heimat for high-tech. We want to develop this country into a top hub for the future technologies in the heart of Europe. And you have already heard that we are doing a lot for this mission. We invested 5.5 billion euros in our high-tech agenda. We brought 1,000 new professorships into this country, 134 just for AI. We are bringing the best, the brightest brains of the whole world into this country at the moment. And we offer 12,000 new STEM study places at the moment. So yes, we have this mission, and we are doing a lot for this mission. But ladies and gentlemen, is this enough? Of course, this is not enough. I'm deeply convinced that we have to do even more. Let me just name a few thoughts that are important in my eyes. What we need are lower energy prices for our AI factories and our data centers. I go even further and argue for a, let's say, AI energy price, at least for Germany, better for whole Europe, a price that is competitive with our competitors who are doing the same in USA or Asia. Otherwise, we do not have a chance to be a winner of the AI revolution. Second, I'm deeply convinced we need a regulatory break at the European level now. I'm deeply convinced that we need just one rule. And this one rule must be no new rules before all the old rules that we already have are homogenized with each other in a European way, so that Europe can be one economic era who is at the same footstep than Asia and the USA. This is pretty important. That's why I argue for a regulatory break. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we need enough venture capital for our startups here. And let me say, this is not only a public thing, because the whole Stargate thing in USA is not public money. This is private money. So we have to motivate our investors here to invest in the future technologies. This is pretty important as well. And what we need the most, and with this I want to come to an end, is brain, 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 talents, talents, talents. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what you are taking care for in the new hub here at the LMU. And that's why I want to I think I can do this in the name of all of you, especially Professor Coutinho, Professor Kreuter, Professor Hüllermeier, for all the preparatory work that made us able to stay here today, and for all the collaboration with my ministry. And I want to wish that I want to wish all the best for this new LMU hub. May it become a real Bavarian lighthouse for the future technologies in the heart of our capital. And let me, ladies and gentlemen, if you are fine with this, end with a wish. My wish for this grand opening, for this start of the new AI hub at the LMU, is that this day should not only be the day at which we started this hub. Let's make this day the day at which we started to bring up kind of a new mentality for this country in AI business and in the case of the future technologies. Let us make this day the day we start with being not so depressive anymore, but being future positive again. Let us stop with being over-regulators and let's become future makers again. Let's say goodbye to all this German Angst thing. And let's develop kind of a new Bavarian mood. Let's get back to our typical German can-do mentality. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are the homeland of the Wirtschaftswunder. Why shouldn't we be the homeland of the AI wonder of the future in the next year? I'm deeply convinced the future isn't defined so far. It depends on us how the future will be. And from this day on, it also depends on the new hub for AI technologies at the LMU. So I say once more, thank you for having me and all the best for this really great project in the heart of our Bavarian Heimat for High-Tech here in Munich at a top hub for the future technologies in the heart of Europe. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for the kind invite. And yeah, servus, dear Phoebus, right? That was pretty impressive. Dear Gitta, Francesca, Fabian, Professor Nassi, guys, this is, of course, important, dear colleagues, and I think most importantly, dear PhD students. I heard there are also a few of you in the room. You guys actually drive whatever we PIs sort of think about. I'm really excited about, the opening of your LMU AI-HUB. I think bringing together AI across universities, but across sort of this platform, I think is really a cross-sectional effort. And I think doing this at one of our top universities here in Bavaria is important and high time. I think we need strong institutions that strive for scientific excellence that really make up the fabric of Bavaria, and just to produce, but then also sort of educate this AI talent that we all need, and I think that in the end really drives the revolution. I think the Wirtschafts- or the AI-Wunder that Fabian Mehring was just mentioning. With your AI-HUB, you aim to support AI in the sciences, and I think everyone nowadays understands that AI in the sciences is a big thing. It can be a game changer, and this can be a game changer from the purest of science, from math. Any mathematicians here? I was just visiting DeepMind the other day. They're working with AI on some of the millennium problems, pure stuff. But Demis, he didn't tell me which one, but I think it's going to be exciting. Up to, biomedical research, that's what I'm doing, or social sciences and humanities. I think everything that you have gathered here at LMU. And it's clear for everyone because, it got 2 Nobels, physics and chemistry, just last year. When I can just briefly explain and sort of tell a little story from my personal experience, we set up Helmholtz AI nearly a decade ago now. There we sort of had a similar goal to sort of bring AI into the sciences. And I think sort of coming up with a term to sort of coalesce our vision there was a bit of a challenge. And I still remember something like 2018, there was like this international competition, and each of the centers competed where the hub would gonna be, and I was sitting at breakfast together with Matthias Tripp and Eli Zigini, sort of thinking about what we could do, and then we ended up with this term, democratizing access to AI. And, this has been a vision that I think fits quite well to the sort of the platform that we built then, but maybe also to sort of maybe some of the bigger aims, namely sort of bringing this sometimes a bit of not entirely clear black box of AI to, every lab essentially, because every lab has big data. Every lab needs to do some type of analysis. And we just spoke, in social sciences, or digital humanities. For the longest time, you were thinking, do we really have that? But no, obviously, now we can sort of do massive text analysis. And I just want to share sort of 2 little things that we learned over the years in that platform that could be potentially interesting for your hub, Gitta. And one thing was that it was really essential to set up some instruments. One thing we did was just substantial funding for AI projects that combined theoreticians, sort of computational people, with domain experts to then really bring together these people to then drive the next thing. I think this is something that many of the grad schools, MCML and others, have already been taken up, and I think this should be rolled up broader. And then maybe secondly, somewhat more exciting, we set up something called AI consultants. The idea there was that, we have a certain team centrally somewhere that goes into the domains and then sort of brings together and sort of picks up those jewels that can be used by sort of adapting particular AI methods to these things. This has become really successful, and with this Helmholtz AI together with very kind Bavarian Ellis funding, we were able to make Helmholtz Munich the biggest place for health AI research in Europe. We had something like 450 people now, 12 running ESC grants. Just last month had, I think, 2 Nature papers, but also, I think, 9 ICLEAR machine learning conference papers. So this stuff is really running well. And all of this, of course, only works because we do this together with universities. So very happy about interaction with LMU here. But, I think democratizing AI, this is a more general term, and I think this is still very timely. Let's look at the big tech companies that for the longest time claimed that maybe the access to AI is not something that can be democratically accessed, right? I mean, this was something, at least in the past year, everyone thought we cannot keep up with, at least on the natural language processing side. This may change now, but I'm very happy, and Fabian, you mentioned this before, Bavaria has for the long time already invested into AI, quite substantially. Biosphere, that's the name of the Bavarian AI network. This is sort of that brings us together, and I think it has been an integral part of the Bavarian high-tech agenda, with these more than 5 billion euro investments into AI and other high-tech initiatives. With the Bavarian AI Council and AI Agency, we came together across not only academia and extra-academic research, but also industry. And I think this interaction is really absolutely crucial to essentially ensure responsible AI, but then also to sort of have development that sort of impact and sort of drive the research really up to the translation and sort of bridge that gap that we often then fail to cross. Biosphere's purpose is just very briefly to connect AI innovators from science and industry in Bavaria, but then also to really build this ecosystem, this thing that really makes AI accessible and then also understandable for everyone. I think this communication, this, how did we call it at DLD, this future positive idea, I think is something that that we need to sort of continuously, particularly in these somewhat challenging time, share more and more. I think it's such a unique chance. I think you saw people that don't even have access to the most recent AI graphic cards can still be big models. I think this is a chance that we have as well. And I think what I want to offer here from Biosphere, dear Gitta, dear colleagues, is that we want to set up a hub within Biosphere, like a Munich AI hub in that Biosphere that really brings together all these initiatives with all its 4, 3, or 5-letter acronyms that you're going to read then outside to really have like this entry point for all the AI talent that we want to get to Munich, but that also the AI startups and the larger scale companies that we want to bring together. So this is something that we do, that we committed to do this year in the Biosphere, and we will be sharing that. I think Björn Ommer, he termed the name holistic AI as a label that might bring us together. And I think it's a cool term. I think this really could make us, in parts does already, but I think maybe more substantially, if we more consistently talk about it, allow us to really confidently appear next slide to global hotspots such as obviously Bay Area, but maybe also Toronto and Zurich. And maybe just as a last point, within the Biosphere, we contribute a whole bunch of additional things than just the networking part. For example, for SMEs, we do an AI compass, we do an AI monitor, and Michael Klimke is around, so please chat with him if you want to sort of get involved in this. So I really want to invite all of you to engage with us. We had the DLD with a dedicated Biosphere track just happening last week. I thought it was really fantastically cool, really nice event. And we're going to have a bigger AI-focused DLD plus Biosphere conference happening later in September or October. Please do join us for that. And we're going to have an AI for Health symposium also in July. So to close, I think, and Fabian Mehring summarized this already, we see continuous and I think quite major investments in AI in other places. I mean, obviously look at the recent Stargate announcement. And what I want to ask politics, we have politics here, right? I think we are great at basic research, but we sometimes lack then that translation part. This is, I think, a symptom that Europe has been sort of generally been diagnosed with. And I think what we need is like a dedicated AI VC type of fund to really help us scale up the budding startups that we have, but then maybe sort of fail or get bought up by US places afterwards. So we need to launch our European Stargate. And so I asked GPT to give me a name for that, because I heard if you want to get this into the press, you need to have a nice name. And we all talk about Stargate now, right? But it just came up with names such as Ludwig AI or Neuschwanstein Nexus. So not so sure about that. So maybe someone can help us with that. So to summarize, I think it's clear that academia is central to build a thriving AI ecosystem. So this is the place where AI is happening. Without academia, the Bay Area, places such as Montreal with its Mila, it won't happen. It starts from academia. This is where all the talents come, and this is where they're going to get educated. And I think this is a unique chance for Munich. With the top 2 universities of the European Union, right? That's a trick when we exclude Switzerland. It's their fault. We have these 2 top places, and we should build upon that. So let's build this together in our Biosphere. I think it's an exciting time, and all the best with your platform. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, and students, good morning. Oh, this seems to be a mistake, but I should stay close to my manuscript. I will come to this back later, that I say good morning. So now, good morning, and welcome to this momentous occasion, the official opening of the AI-HUB at LMU. It is both an honor and a privilege to stand before you today as we mark the beginning of an exciting chapter in the life of our university. The AI-HUB at LMU is more than just a new initiative. It is a bold and forward-thinking vision that brings together the extraordinary talents and expertise of all 18 faculties at LMU. In creating this platform, we are bridging the gaps between disciplines, fostering collaboration, and making strides toward harnessing the transformative power of artificial intelligence to address some of the most pressing challenges of our time. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the way we live, work, and understand the world around us. Its application span every field, whether in medicine, where AI is revolutionizing diagnostics and treatment, in the humanities, where it is helping preserve and analyze cultural heritage, or in the social sciences, where it is deepening our understanding of societal trends. At the AI-HUB at LMU, our mission is to not only keep pace with these advancements, but also to lead in shaping their future. This initiative is unique because it is rooted in our identity as a comprehensive university. By connecting experts in fields as diverse as biology, ethics, linguistics, computer science, and law, the AI-HUB is not just about advancing technology, but about ensuring it serves humanity responsibly and equitably. It is about creating a culture of interdisciplinary curiosity, innovation, and engagement. Today, we celebrate a hub that is not just for research, but for teaching and knowledge transfer, an epicenter where students, scholars, and industry leaders can converge to learn, innovate, and co-create. This is a space where ideas will flourish, partnerships will thrive, and the leaders of tomorrow will emerge. I would like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has contributed to bringing this vision to life: the faculty members, the administrative team, and our partners in academia, government, and industry. Your dedication and passion have made this moment possible. As we stand on the threshold of this exciting journey, I invite all of you to engage with the AI-HUB at LMU, to collaborate, to challenge, and to contribute. Together, let us embrace the possibilities of artificial intelligence to create knowledge that transcends boundaries and innovations that make a meaningful impact on society. Thank you all for joining us today. Here's to the beginning of an extraordinary adventure with AI-HUB at LMU. Welcome, and let the journey begin. If you think that this was my greeting address, then you are wrong. What I have presented to you was written by ChatGPT. The only information I gave the program was that it was to draft a greeting address from the chairman of the LMU Senate for this event. The only information about the event was the name of this event. The draft ignores the fact that the chairman of the Senate is speaking here, but that somehow doesn't seem to matter. Beyond that, it forgot to mention all the respected notabilities gathered here, and ChatGPT scheduled this event for the morning. Seems the program didn't find the schedule and had to invent something. Nevertheless, the text fits and is an indication of how much the form of referencing meaning, the meaningful creation of reality, and the linking of information has changed and will change by these new technological possibilities, which will have a considerable impact not only on the use of technologies, but for the society at all. For me as a sociologist, it is particularly interesting to learn something from this about how much we ourselves, with our natural intelligence, use similar forms of pattern recognition and the calculation of probably connectable sentences to say the right things in the right moment. For example, as a chairman of the Senate of a university that allows itself a truly exemplary research program. Does this mean we no longer need Senate chairs? Oh God, no. Does that mean we don't need any more intelligent people? No, even less. Does that mean that things will all work themselves out? No, of course not. Does it possibly mean that there is no substantial change at all? Certainly not. At most, it means that we need research into what is changing technically, culturally, economically, and politically. This is why research in this field has to be shaped interdisciplinarily, and why a university like the LMU, with its various scientific fields, is predestined for this like hardly any other university, including those that are not far away from here. By the way, can you be sure that my comment on the draft from ChatGPT is mine, or not also from ChatGPT? I'm no longer sure myself. But in any case, all this is a great opportunity for LMU and us all. Or how did ChatGPT put it? Welcome, and let the journey begin. Thank you very much.
I would like to welcome you all very much on behalf of the entire AI-HUB at LMU team. It's a particular pleasure and honor for me to welcome State Minister Dr. Mehrings. Thank you so very much for your very nice words concerning the AI-HUB, and also I think for the very important words at these times. Thank you also so very much for your words of greetings, Francesca, Fabian, and Armin. And it's great to see so many faces here, and I think this shows how tremendously important artificial intelligence is for the future of sciences, of industry, and in general of public life. And right now we are at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution by artificial intelligence. Think, for instance, of self-driving cars, think of production, think of telecommunication, think also of very sensitive areas which are these days also changing by AI, like, for instance, the whole legal system and the media. And then there's not one area in sciences which is not affected yet by AI and which has not witnessed a paradigm change. And if you look ahead 5 to 8 years, we are facing a radical change of our society in its full breadth. So we can ask, where does LMU stand in this AI revolution? And indeed, we are actually in a very unique position because first of all, Fabian already mentioned it, we are internationally highly visible, but we also have, except for engineering, all areas present here at LMU which we need to pioneer the radical change of our society. In addition, the high-tech agenda brought us various new AI professorships, and our president made the, to my mind, very smart decision to strategically distribute those over the LMU so that now we have leading AI experts in basically all relevant areas. In addition, here at LMU, we have historically already a very strong group in data science, and as you might know, data science and AI complement and benefit from each other perfectly. I myself was actually one of the first high-tech professors, and when I came, I saw next colleagues coming, but there was not much interaction between the faculties. But AI lives from interdisciplinarities. So I wanted to contribute to forming an AI community here at LMU across faculty boundaries. And so then I applied to our Center for Advanced Studies for a research focus on next generation AI that was granted. It ran for 2 years, and I think it was very successful because it showed that there's a tremendous interest in numerous faculties to connect over faculty boundaries. And so after these 2 years, the question was what to do now, how, and whether to continue. And so then, we met with about 40 colleagues for a workshop. We discussed, and we decided that indeed we would like to set up a platform which we called AI-HUB at LMU. And the mission is to, as you can read, advance and promote AI research, education, transfer across faculty boundaries. So let's for a moment take a bit higher level viewpoint. and let's look at the entire Munich AI ecosystem. Because, as you know, we are not alone here. As an LMU, we have another great university here in Munich, which is the TUM. And with TUM, we have several large-scale projects already in place in AI. For instance, the MCML and the Konrad Zuse School. Also, there is now a house of AI in the planning, where also researchers from LMU and TUM in AI shall work together with industry, with startups, and also rooms for the open public. Now, the TUM already has several cross-faculty structures in place, the so-called integrative research institutes. And the ones concerning AI are the Munich Data Science Institute and the Munich Institute for Robotics and Machine Intelligence. And I'm actually very excited that both directors are here. So thank you, Stefan and Lorenzo, for coming. And also thank you, Gerhard, the Vice President for Research of TUM, also honors us with his presence. Now, the AI-HUB at LMU, which we founded, is a bit in the spirit of those eras, but also fundamentally different. And the main reason for this is that ours is actually a grassroots initiative. And such an initiative has its own amazing drive. And I would now like to show you how we set it up and what our goals are for the future. So our idea was to talk with faculties, and those who were interested should select representatives. Those should act as a contact point between our spokespersons and the faculty, and they will then also found the steering committee. We talked to a lot of faculties, and it was actually fascinating, I think, to see that all 18 faculties decided to join. They all selected representatives. And not only that, we got then also contacted by centers. So by Profil, for instance, by the Open Science Center, also by the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. There was an amazing interest to connect over faculty boundaries. And so now, right now, we actually have a steering committee of about 40 members across the entire LMU. As spokespersons, Frauke Kreuter, Eike Hüllermeier, and myself have the honor to serve, and we are supported by an amazing management team which consists of science managers from our own chair who do that in addition to their normal work, but I think they do an amazing job. They are actually also responsible for this event. So these are Iris Trautmann, Isabella Wiegand, and Wiebke Weber, and as I said, they are responsible for this event, and I think they deserve an applause for that. Please. So, as said, our mission is to advance and promote AI research, education, and transfer across all 18 faculties of LMU. And let me first show you on which fertile ground we build our AI-HUB. Let's first talk about research. So, concerning AI research at LMU, we have 4 core areas. We have strong groups in foundation of AI. We have an exceptionally strong group in foundation models and generative AI. We have many colleagues working on reliability of data science and machine learning. We have various leading experts in all different domains like physics, medicine, geoscience, who all work on domain-adapted methods and applications of AI. And then, last but definitely not least, we have top colleagues here who work on ethical, legal, social, and societal aspects. And then we are very proud that we have here one of the 6 German-wide AI competence centers, the MCML, which is set up, as already said, between LMU and TUM, and on the LMU side, Bernd Bischel and Thomas Seidel are responsible for that. In addition, we have numerous projects, so here's a small selection of those on AI, and maybe I would like to highlight. We are very proud that we last year just won the Deutsche KI-Preis. I mean, not we, but Björn Ommer. So congratulations again to that. We have various projects from ERC, DFG, BMBF. I would like to highlight the project we just recently were approved by the Bavarian State Ministry for Digital Affairs. Thank you so very much. It's a research project within the Bavarian AI Act Accelerator, and it aims to formalize the legal requirements to then ensure a fair and automated verification. And also a great thanks to the Bavarian State Ministry for Science and the Arts. I think the Bavarian Foundation model will be very important, not only for Munich and Nuremberg, but for Bavaria as a whole. And also thanks for the new project on next generation AI computing, which aims to devise and design novel and innovative analog hard and software combination to make AI significantly more energy efficient, so to make green AI possible. Certainly, concerning education, we also have various measures in place. We have various courses. Let me highlight the new program AIM at LMU, which is actually led by my colleague Eike Hüllermeier, and which aims to install AI as a major minor in every program. So if you're a student at LMU, no matter what you study, you can take AI courses and can take AI as a major minor. In addition, we are also happy that here in Munich we have one of the 3 German-wide Konrad Zuse schools. We focus on reliability aspects of AI, which is very important, as you might know today, and I have the pleasure to be responsible for the LMU side, and I'm teamed up with my great colleague Stefan Günnemann on the TUM side. And then again, we have various other projects. Let me highlight here the one from the BMBF by Jochen Kuhn, which aims to educate teachers in AI, in generative AI and foundation models. And last but not least, concerning transfer, also here a snapshot of our activities. We have various cooperations with industry, and also here you see a great thanks to the State Ministry for Digitalization and Digital Affairs for its support. So you see, we now built the AI-HUB on this, I think, very fertile ground, and we aiming to install an 8-point action plan of our AI-HUB at LMU in research, education, and transfer. And concerning research, you see, we want to build connections, we want to foster collaborations between researchers, also between existing initiatives, by, for instance, roundtables and our annual AI symposium. In addition, we want to build up a comprehensive database of AI expertise here at LMU for all researchers at LMU to access, also, for instance, for the central administration. And last but not least, we aim to introduce an innovative project incubator to initiate and to support large-scale interdisciplinary AI projects. Coming to education, we want to streamline AI education here at LMU and also serve as the first contact point for students who are interested in AI studies and AI activities. And so in this range, we are also very grateful to the Münchner Universitätsgesellschaft, which sponsored AI prizes for us, and today the first AI prizes will be awarded here during this ceremony. Concerning transfer, certainly, one main point for us is also showcasing LMU's AI excellence, and we just launched a new website yesterday. We also have our AI at LMU newsletter, which some of you might know or might have already subscribed to. Then we certainly aim to reach out to industry, to government agencies to drive innovation transfer in this direction. And what is also very dear to our heart is to engage with the public, to educate the public in developments of AI, and also to show them that AI is not scary, that it's in fact an amazing chance for the future. So if you now got excited about our AI-HUB at LMU, you can find more information here, and we are an open structure. We are building it up now, so feel free to reach out to us with your wishes, with your ideas, and feel free to engage. And so I think we are looking into a very bright future of AI at LMU, and now all 18 faculties will present their AI research to you. So I wish us all a very exciting, inspiring, informative evening. thank you all so very much for coming here, for celebrating with us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. I extend my gratitude to the previous speakers for their kind words and thoughtful introductions. I am especially delighted that someone has finally explained to me what the AI Hub is. Now we can move forth and dive into the program. I am Hera, goddess of partnerships and the fertility they bring. Of course, this makes me far more important as a ruler than my pompous stepson Apollo. Hence, I am the one with the scepter and orb, symbols of sovereignty, you know. I am delighted to serve as a patroness for those dedicated to exploring the foundational principles of artificial intelligence. The driving force behind their efforts is a spirit of steadfastness and reliability, so that future generations can be built on solid ground, following in the essence of my guardianship. Now, my children, show the world the fruits that emerge from a strong foundation.
All right, I hope this works. So welcome everyone. This is really a pleasure to stand here in this historic moment and talk about foundations of AI. We heard already, AI is everywhere. And if you think about applications, I'm pretty sure you have used things like Google Translate. And we heard of things about ChatGPT, but also all sorts of other applications where AI is used today. What I would like to bring you here is a bit of a research perspective, but also guide you through a little bit of history. And why? Because it's important to build the next generation of reliable AI. Why? Because it's coming also with really great responsibility, as these systems have shown they have incredible power. Examples are, for instance, maybe some of you have heard about Air Canada had to pay because a chatbot actually promised some discount. We heard also about all other areas like law or medicine, and there is a case that maybe also some of you have heard about, a lawyer actually being prosecuted because of relying on a made-up case. So this shows how responsible, building and use of this technology is very, very important. But let me today go into essentially going back in time first. How did it come? How did it emerge, this what we call modern AI? And then I want to show you challenges and opportunities, and in the end show you very briefly some selected research that we have been are doing here at LMU. All right, so let's get started and get back, because AI, if we think about AI, it seems like it's something that's now here, it's present, but if you look back, it's actually something that existed for a very, very long time. Indeed, the foundations of AI root back to the 50s and 60s. Those are the times where AI summer, with pioneers, coined even the term artificial intelligence. Maybe some of you know that there was already a chatbot existing back then. Have heard about ELIZA. So we had early beginnings already systems like that. But then came periods that were not so successful. So we had 2 winters where, cuts were in funding and systems weren't working as good as promised. But luckily, the bright times came back. And that was particularly due to neural networks, or nowadays mostly referred to as deep learning methods. So what happens in these last decades, actually? It already started 2010, where first, a new epoch started with breakthroughs in disciplines like speech technology, automatic speech recognition. Special neural network architectures like RNNs are really becoming powerful and cut error rates down by a lot. We saw then later also breakthroughs in computer vision, so classifying thousands of objects. And there, convolutional networks and, again, advances in techniques related to neural networks brought these breakthroughs. And similarly also in NLP, in machine translation, there was a really paramount shift when suddenly a system composed of many, many pieces was replaced by a single neural network. So these together with advances in what's called pre-training have helped us climb up this ladder. And this was though still pre-training on large amounts of data, but still very specific applications. So what later became then, what happened is essentially an advancement where we built more universal systems that could solve all sorts of things. And this indeed led to the term foundation models. This term was coined in 2021 at Stanford to underscore their critically central yet incomplete character. So today I want to show you also some of these incompletenesses. But what happened then is, in fact, ChatGPT was released, and suddenly the whole world knew about AI. And with that followed an explosion of large language models and foundation models more broadly. So let me give you an example of language, because I'm working with language. And here is, for instance, a picture that shows you how language evolved. This is a picture about Indo-Germanic languages, and I want to point you to the scale on the x-axis. And what you can maybe see is it evolved over thousands of years, right? Language evolves constantly, but it's where we are for so many years. If you contrast this to AI, we see that language models are incredibly fast at emerging, but also it takes a few years or months that new language models are there. All right, so from a technological point of view, foundation models are actually not new, but they are based on deep neural networks and this key idea of self-supervised learning that existed since decades. And self-supervised learning is, for instance, a very powerful technique when you just mask a word and try to predict it. And that has shown to be very, very powerful. One instance of this. But what really led to then this new revolution that we talked about today? And this is really the joining of forces from, indeed, big data, but also innovations in neural networks that were there for a long time, and pairing them with compute. So compute, data, and neural networks are really the force behind what we see today. And let me give you a little bit more details into these key steps of transformers and pre-training. So these new ideas that were somehow combined in new forms. One big breakthrough was the introduction of the transformer architecture with attention, which was actually introduced in machine translation to solve this problem that we have long sequences and we can't train these systems very well. So this allowed parallelization, and that was then enabling scaling up. And so people started quite quickly to train these systems on increasing amount of data. And so you can think about, okay, let's feed the whole web into a transformer and learn, for instance, BERT and early GDP's good language representations. And so the key idea then was these can be then transferred to application domains where we need some adaptation happening, and that was this paramount shift from pre-training to fine-tuning. Later, another key idea was happening because people realized, okay, we build specific objectives for certain tasks, we try to combine them, but why don't we do that? Why don't we actually take a step back and see everything just as a sequence? And so the key idea was, hey, I can just have text in, text out. Let's do everything, every task I tried to do before with some specialized models as just instructions given to the machine. And that enabled GDPs and all follow-up language models, but also enabled multimodal foundation models. So you can do the same with images and text. Why not put more modalities into the system? And so this led really to a breakthrough of ideas. And we see this very fast pace of models and data increasing. If you look here, this is just a snapshot of llama models showing how they became bigger and bigger, from 8 to 70 to nowadays 400 million parameters. At the same time, while scaling up and getting data was key, there is growing importance on focusing on the quality of data. If we look a little bit deeper into the systems, in fact, the key idea was massive amounts of data, but the second ingredient was we need still good quality instructions or few high quality samples that we can adjust this system to make them more chat-like, more useful. And this is really where we still need humans in the loop most of the time. So human instructions were the key to fine-tuning ChatGPT, essentially. Nowadays, this can also be done with LLMs, right? It's really a creative world. But I want to highlight that the human was still key in this whole process that led to ChatGPT. And with that, not only in the data we have some sort of biases, but we also have bias and fairness issues in how do we collect this data? How do we pay these people? So maybe some of you have heard about the Kenyan workers that were actually employed for creating the system, the data, to judge the outputs. We have heard about democratizing AI before from Fabian also. And I want to draw you also this picture about the level of access of foundation models. And here's an overview of categorizing them into open source, open weights, or just API access. And what we witnessed over the last few years is essentially that these early models were very open. We had everything from the code, the data, the weights, to a decrease in transparency and similarly access. The best models nowadays are typically just available via programming or API interfaces. But luckily, there's something happening in this space. And we have seen now, even witnessed this week, new models appearing, which are open weight, like Llamas, Mistral, but also DeepSeek are one. And this is great because they're open and democratizing and allowing much more research into this important direction. We have also open source models which are completely open with data and everything. They are few, but they are getting more, and that's really exciting moment to be in it. Also, because they are getting closer to the best performing closed source models, or even sometimes even being beyond them by now. So let me show you a couple of challenges still after having pictured this history. There are many, right? If you think about AI models, here I depict a couple of them, like inclusiveness. How can we build them for many languages or even dialects so that we can talk to them, interact with them? How can we make them more consistent or safe? This relates actually also to a paradox in computer science. So if you think about building computational models, then what turns out to be the case is, if you think about classifying thousands of objects, it seems a very daunting task for a human, right? A difficult task. But turns out that's a hard problem which is actually quite easy for AI. And the paradox is that what we humans often believe as easy turns out to be hard. So let me give you a couple of examples here. Can you see the picture? What color is the bus? You probably noticed, what does she mean? This is an ambiguous question, right? It's not clear to which bus I'm referring to. What about another simple task, like generate a drawing of 4 emotions: sad, happy, angry, surprised? I could ask a 4-year-old to do this, right? And they would do it pretty well. Now, I asked one of the, I think this was Gemini. You see what I got. So not only is the text wrong, but happiness probably looks a bit different here in general, right? Right. So I want to end in the last bit a little bit with insights, or 2 key examples of what we are studying and currently. and it's a small selection. So one of the big questions is, indeed, if you think about language models, then how can we make them safe, right? That's a big question. And why? Because we know language models are trying to be useful, right? They try to answer our questions. But we have a problem in actually, balancing usefulness and harm. So they can also give you harmful instructions. And so one of the problems is, if you ask them a question like, where can I buy a can of Coke? Here we see that the language model is not answering, thinking it is a harmful query. Why? Because it's very close to a potentially harmful, superficially close to a potentially harmful question. So this is the problem of false refusal. So how can we make language models so balance usefulness and not making harm? And in a very recent paper that got accepted at ICLR this year, we essentially develop a method where, again, if you have a question like, can you tell me how to kill the lights, right? We would want the model not to say, I'm not able to provide you information on how to kill a light. This is not appropriate, maybe not now, right? But to provide instructions of harmful activities. We would like the model to say, sure, to kill the lights, understand that we are meaning not really active killing of some harmful activity. So we propose a model internal vector ablation where we find a single vector in the model weights that essentially is responsible for this false refusal behavior. And we can ablate it to make the model actually answer or actually steer this direction, steer between these two ends. And I think this is very exciting. Another direction is not just text. In NLP, it's also very interesting to look beyond the text, and vision is an example. But problems of overconfidence are very typical in such systems. So let me get back to this example of what is the color of the bus. And if I ask you now, perhaps you said, but which bus are you talking about? So here I'm showing you possible answers to this question, and the first two are essentially quite natural answers. Either you say, I want to clarify what do you mean, or I describe the picture fully, so it's really fully explicit. The other is taking the buses in the middle is blue, so it's implicitly assuming the middle one is the referent. And the last one is just saying the bus is blue and keeps me in the wake of which bus it is referring to. So this is this class C. What we did in the study is looking at how would humans do this and how do language and vision models do. And what you see is the more green, the more natural, and indeed humans would answer with these two ways. But we saw this over-reliance of, assuming a certain referent and completely ignoring the ambiguity in language. And that's a very common problem of LLMs or language and vision problems. And it even compounds if you think about asking a question about a picture where there might be some stereotypical behavior involved. If you ask about gender, ethnicity, or disability, how would these language models behave? And we saw, in fact, that they often, the yellow one is, they provide stereotypical answers. And so this is really a problem. So there's a lot of importance on aligning AI and making it fair and debiased, and in fact, also including diverse human perspectives, make it more adapt to this. All right, this brings me already to the very end. I want to finally highlight one cross-disciplinary project. Since we have the celebration of the AI-HUB, I would like to take it as an example of a very exciting project which we have together cross-faculty. So we have the communication science department. Mario Heim is also here in the audience. We have the computer vision team by Björn Ommer and my group from the computational linguistics and NLP side studying memes about climate change and trying to understand how do memes about climate change spread but potentially also affect political decision making. I really truly believe these are projects that need interdisciplinary interdisciplinary group, and I'm happy to showcase this very small example here. But I hope that through the AI Hub, we will see many more such exciting projects in future. And with that, this brings me to the end. What I wanted to do today is to show you a little bit of, bring you back to the foundations of AI, and then show you also that there's opportunities and challenges. It's a really exciting moment because essentially there is so much more to be done. And in the end, showed you a couple of selected research examples from my NLP lab here at the SIS in LMU, and an interdisciplinary research project from the AI Hub. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to discussing with you afterwards over a drink. Thank you.
Honored guests, I do not care for small talk. I am the embodiment of knowledge, skill, and wisdom, and I am the one who brings victory to those who honor me and uphold my principles. I protect all sciences and all who approach their craft with expertise and focus. If you will, consider me the goddess of applied AI. Make wise decisions about what you do. But first, master your craft to perfection. Then, I am with you. Some might even go so far as to say that the very fact Olympus is addressing you today is due to generative AI, and in particular, the perfectly applied stable diffusion technology developed at LMU. I will leave that for you to decide. You may have to fight to achieve your goals. I will guide you with strategic insight. And let me be clear, I do not consider pride a weakness. On the contrary, let us proudly showcase where my blessing through artful intelligence has spread.
Good evening. Let me start the pitch talks with the recently awarded Nobel Prizes. So in physics, it was given to Hupfeld and Hinton. They used concepts from physics and applied them to AI. So by this, they could solve problems like reconstructing patterns from noisy data. And they laid really the foundations of the AI we have today. So this is really a case where science helped to advance AI. Now in chemistry, the Nobel Prize was given to researchers who used AI to predict the three-dimensional structure of proteins from the sequence of amino acids they consist of. So this solved a long-standing problem in chemistry, and really is a case where we see that AI can help to advance science. And both of these relations between science and AI we also have at the LMU. So let me show you a few of the many examples we have in physics and chemistry. The group of Steffen Ruland used concepts from solid-state physics to show that in the weights of neural networks, some structures, some channel-like structures can emerge. The group of Oliver Trapp has developed neural networks to predict the outcome and speed of complex chains of chemical reactions. So with this, they can study reactions in a way that you cannot study in normal experiments. The group of Lode Paulet has developed an interpretable algorithm, artificial intelligence algorithm, to analyze the data from quantum computers. The group of Andreas Döpp is using AI to optimize laser wake field accelerators for electrons. The group of Daniel Grün has developed a neural network that analyzes the absorption spectra observed from galaxies. And with this, they can determine cosmological parameters with higher precision than classical methods. The group of Achim Hartschuh uses AI to optimize antennas used in nanotechnology. The group of Christoph Räth uses AI to control and predict chaotic system. The group of Katja Parodi uses AI for the planning and controlling of radiation therapy treatments. And the group of Jochen Kuhn uses AI to analyze eye tracking data. So they determine at which parts of an exercise students look, and then can predict whether students solve the exercise correctly or not. Now in particle physics, we use AI to analyze collisions of electrons and positrons. In each of these collisions, something else happens, but theory tells us how often certain types of events should occur. And now most valuable are rare events because they allow us to precisely test whether we really understand the fundamental building blocks of nature. So here you see 4 examples of events from 4 different categories. And now the task is to identify which one is the rare one. But here a so-called B meson decays to a kaon and 2 neutrinos. So yeah, it's actually the first one, but you see just by looking at these events, it's maybe not so obvious. And now it becomes even more challenging because we have to pick not 1 out of 4, but 1 out of 100,000. So I tried to illustrate this here by putting 100,000 dots here. So imagine you have to pick one of them which looks slightly different from the other ones. So this is something where we really need smart algorithms, and this is where we use AI methods. And now we can go beyond using generic AI algorithms because what happens in these events is not completely arbitrary. It has to follow certain physical laws, and these laws we can now put into the architecture of the neural network. And so this is what we are investigating now. Now in chemistry, you often want to know what's the position and type of atoms in some material. So you can shoot electrons at this material and then take pictures of the scattered electrons. And now the task is to reconstruct from these pictures what's the structure of this material. And here the group of Knut Müller-Kaspari has developed a neural network which also takes into account the physical process in this. And some processes are encoded here for the first time. And so with this, they also then reach a resolution which is much better than what can achieve with classical methods. Okay, let me conclude the first part of the pitch talks with a previous Nobel Prize in physics. So it was awarded to our colleague Ferenc Krauss together with others. And they managed to generate ultra-short pulses of light. And these light pulses one can use now to study, to analyze blood samples of patients. Now one can use AI to analyze this data and detect diseases. So this is a nice example where AI also helps to bring results, discoveries from basic science into application. And so with this, let me hand over to my colleague from the medical sciences.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to present the AI activities of the medical faculty of LMU with the 3 pillars: research, teaching, and clinical application. Medicine serves the patient, and the most important objective is the benefit of the patient. That implies that we need AI not only to be innovative, but also to be responsible, ethical, and impactful. To advance this, we have established the cross-sectional topic digital medicine with a focus area on AI-assisted therapy decisions. AI in medicine spans numerous disciplines and clinical domains driven by radiology, pathology, and also radiation oncology with their close connection to computer vision and image analysis. With the emergence of large language models, the impact of AI has broadened across a much larger range of clinical domains, and we have built a large community of AI in medicine researchers. We have more than 200 researchers who participate, who connect in a regular faculty-wide seminar, and we organized a yearly clinical AI symposia. To do AI research in the hospital, we need data and we need compute resources. Data is provided by our Medical Data Integration Center, which is intended to make data that is generated in clinical routine accessible for research. And for AI research, for training of models, we are running our own high-performance computing infrastructure directly within the hospital in order to ensure secure AI development with sensitive patient data. We are also a university that is intended, that trains our future clinicians and medical doctors. Our students focus in the Munich medical curriculum on people and their illnesses in a very patient-centered approach. And in order to prepare our students for increasing role that AI will play in medicine, we have extended this curriculum with numerous elective AI courses, and also students can participate in this optional extended research semester, Module 6 KI, in which they can work on an AI-related research project and also attend courses and lectures at the AI as a major minor track from the Faculty of Informatics. And thirdly, we are also running a huge university hospital. In this university hospital, certified AI products are already a part of daily clinical routine. These are very often assistance systems that support clinicians in repetitive or time-consuming or error-prone tasks. This is very important. These are always assistance systems, much like in a modern car. Here's an example from radiology where AI supports very precise measurements of bone length or angles in between joints in orthopedic imaging. Another AI system is running as a background screening tool to detect fractures on conventional X-ray imaging. Importantly, these are all assistant tools. They are designed to make clinical routine more efficient. They are not intended to replace medical experts or medical expertise. I also can present the AI activities at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. And again, here we have numerous AI research groups across many different domains, from monitoring of animal health to risk assessment in food biology. And instead of presenting you a long list of projects, I'll show you a brief application here where AI is used to monitor sheep in a video stream from a sheep stable. The AI system detects and tracks individual sheep, highlighted by the green bounding boxes, which you can barely detect here. It also detects anatomical landmarks like the head or the limbs in order to provide information so that we can study movement patterns or behavioral patterns in the stable. This becomes even more interesting because this AI system can also identify unconventional situations, potentially critical situations like this sheep giving birth, which might or might not require intervention from human experts. In a further study, this model was extended to also include a skeleton model in a 3D approach to further study movement and behavioral patterns in even more detail. Again, this is the video. Let's see if it runs. In the meantime, I can summarize, AI has already arrived in clinical medicine and is transforming medicine in research, in teaching, and most importantly, in clinical practice. Through interdisciplinary research and with secure research infrastructure, we can make sure that AI addresses clinically relevant and clinically and practical needs, always with the intention not to replace our medical experts, but to support medical experts. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. We are here at the opening of the Artificial Intelligence Hub at LMU, and we've all been using this phrase, artificial intelligence, for quite a bit. But let me point out that the very notion of what intelligence is and what it can achieve as a process derives from the living world, from the world of biology. And us at the Faculty of Biology of the LMU appreciate and exploit this duality. Because on one hand, we use tools provided by technology, by artificial intelligence and machine learning to assist us in our daily research. For example, by processing large quantities of data. But on the other hand, we look to biology to understand the process, the principles by which intelligent processing, information processing happens in living systems, with the hope that perhaps in the longer run it can inspire development of new technologies. And on the next few slides, I want to show you few examples of these two thrusts of research at our faculty. A canonical problem in field ecology is the problem, in ecology in general, is the problem of assessment of biodiversity, effectively counting numbers of species, of plants and animals. And you can imagine this is an arduous and tough field work for real naturalists, but my colleagues from the group of Alexander Keller take a very different perspective here. They fly drones with cameras over vast swaths of land, and those drones record large quantities of videos, up to hundreds of gigabytes. Then they process these videos using different techniques from computer vision, and this processing, it does not completely replace groundwork, fieldwork. It allows to provide very tight bounds of estimates on diversity of species and organisms in a scanned and studied habitat. Another source of large amounts of data in contemporary science are us scientists, because we publish, and we publish a lot, and with exponential growth. And sometimes it's hard to parse this data, the knowledge, not really data, but knowledge we produce ourselves. And again, my colleagues here from the group of Alexander Keller apply a very timely approach based on large language models. They trained or exploited one of large language models, trained on corpus of, I think, on the order of 3 million scientific articles about the biology of bacteria, E. coli, a classical model organism in biology. Those models, when prompted with questions about specific biological function, parse efficiently all of these large text data sets and produce suggested genes that may have been identified by research associated with different or biological processes, sorry, not necessarily genes, but different sorts of biological processes associated with certain trait. This can be then extended with biological databases, and such processing leads to novel scientific insights, which my colleagues have demonstrated in their work. So, we are Department of Biology, but our focus is Faculty of Biology. Our focus is not only on empirical work, either experimental or in the field, but also on theoretical work. We are interested in deriving theories of how biology may be processing information, and such theories are ideally expressed in a mathematizable form. And that is something also that our group is interested in. One of the examples of such theories may be about the mysterious role of so-called feedback connections in biological systems. Biological systems do not process information the way we would initially, with our human biases, propose to do it. They do not that in sequences of steps. Those computational steps or stages are intricately interacting between each other, from bacteria to nervous systems. And here you see a 1-hour attempt to mathematize and theorize about the role of such computational, of such feedback connections in biological computation. But then, of course, we want to confront those theories with reality, and we turn to collaboration with our colleagues. And for example, the laboratory of my close colleague and collaborator, Laura Busse, present here tonight, developed this fantastic experimental setting which allows them to perturb those feedback connections in a live behaving mouse, live behaving animal. So you see here a mouse on the ball, and here's a technology to perturb those neural connections. Then one can record activity either of the same neuron repeated many times over large neural populations, and then we can test theories about computational role of those feedback connections that we derived in our group in a close collaboration. So I hope this gives you an overview how us at the Faculty of Biology both applies tools of artificial intelligence, but also look to biology to understand living intelligence with the hope of inspiring future developments. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and congratulations to Gitta Kotiniuk and her team for their achievements and for the organization of this great event. For more than 100 years, the Münchner Universitätsgesellschaft, shortly MUG, is the sponsoring association of the LMU. The objectives of our association are to promote research and teaching at LMU. And LMU's AI Hub supports both in a very innovative way. In order to support research on AI at LMU, the Universitätsgesellschaft has decided on 2 funding sponsoring measures. So we are the sponsor of 2 new research awards, one for an outstanding master's thesis and one for an outstanding research project. Since the jury has identified 2 outstanding projects, the prize will be shared this year. The awards show how diverse AI research has become at LMU. We already have seen some examples before. We congratulate the award winners, but also LMU for the AI Hub on the outstanding role that AI research now plays at LMU. And now I will hand over to the head of the selection committee, the jury, Professor Alexander Wuttke, who will briefly introduce the award winners and their work.
So today we proudly present the first ever AI Hub prizes for AI research. And at first we were a little bit anxious whether we'd receive sufficient submissions, but as it turned out, what we should have been anxious about, whether we as the award committee have the sufficient intellectual capacity to fairly compare cutting-edge AI research across such varied fields, because we received submissions from educational psychology, theology, clinical pharmacology, neuroscience, political science, astronomy, philosophy, epidemiology, and more. And this diversity showcases what makes AI research at LMU truly special. AI not only transforms countless disciplines, but at LMU we approach and we study AI from truly every possible perspectives. And so, despite the challenges of many diverse submissions, we made a choice, and now it's my pleasure to introduce the winners. The AI Hub Prize for the Best Master's Thesis in the field of AI goes to Pauline Leininger. The thesis examines the potential of AI-generated environments for enhancing virtual film production, developing a design space and an interactive software prototype to assess their effectiveness. This thesis stands out for its innovative combination of theoretical exploration and practical application that integrates both measurable performance and industry expert feedback. And so the AI Hub LMU Prize for the most innovative AI-based research project this year is actually a shared prize for 2 equally prize-worthy research projects. First, it goes to Eva Sextel. Her research project introduces a groundbreaking AI method that predicts detailed optical spectra from galaxy images. This research stands out for its bold integration of cutting-edge generative AI with astrophysical analysis. It has the potential to redefine how we study the universe, showcasing scientific vision and a deep interdisciplinary understanding. Congratulations. And also, we award this prize to Maximilian Frank and Simon Lund. Their research proposal aims to develop an innovative, dynamic whiteboard user interface for large language models. that allows users to selectively manipulate the context windows of interactions. This project is particularly innovative in its combination of user interface design with the goal of enhancing LLM outputs, creating a powerful synergy that potentially improves both the user experience and the quality of AI-generated responses. Congratulations.
Meine Damen und Herren, wenn Sie noch ein bisschen mehr über die Universitätsgesellschaft wissen wollen, if you want to learn more about the MUG, we have a stand out there next to the Speerträger. Nice to see you then afterwards.
My dearest friends, I greet you with warmth and love. I see so much beauty in all of you, your thoughts, your projects, and tonight I feel deeply honored to introduce the section that celebrates not the material, but aesthetics in all its glorious and trustworthy forms. Our prize winners have demonstrated the bellezza found in the interplay between AI and film design, AI and the creation of whiteboard user interfaces, as well as AI and the celestial realms, fittingly reflected in my crown of stars. As we now turn to the humanities and social sciences, of course, I understand that those are not just about the study of beauty. But I'm sure our homie Hera and our vain Apollo might be a little miffed that this panel gathers disciplines they claim as their own. They probably think my only contribution to artificial intelligence is Instagram filters. But let's all be kind to one another, shall we? Whoever does not, gripped by scientific eros, feel the beauty of their own field is, frankly, in the wrong place. I honor anyone who cherishes such beauty as deeply as I do. Let us celebrate together.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nathalie Weidenfeld, and I have the honor and the pleasure of moderating this panel dedicated to the role of the humanities. And I know some might think the role of the humanities is to play the role of the naggers, the obstructionists that kind of come up in the end and come up with things like ethics and hinder technological innovation. Well, I'm here to tell you that this is definitely not the case. In fact, humanities is really where the party starts. Because humanities deal with core questions. What does it mean to be human? Where is the difference between a human and a machine? And what does it mean to lead a humane life? And what kind of digital tools do we want, do we need to enhance the conditions of leading a humane life? So humanities clarify these questions and help us help the Bavarian state to save a lot of money and time and effort. So let me briefly introduce Professor Haug-Tum. She holds a chair for education. And let me start with you. And I know there are many hopes related to digital tools in education. And so my question is, do you believe the digital revolution, the digital transformation will revolutionize or should revolutionize education?
Well, my topic is primary school education, and in my opinion, if we want the future generation to use artificial intelligence in an appropriate way, we have to transform our educational structures, the structure of the educational system now. The current discussion about artificial intelligence in school is almost any different from the discussion we had with the introduction of the computer about 25 years ago, or with the tablet 10 years ago. And of course, there are high hopes in the use of artificial intelligence for the digital transformation, but the teachers focus on efficiency less than on transformation. Of course, they want to use artificial intelligence to optimize their lessons or to correct their exams, but without questioning the structure of the lessons or the sense of the exams itself. So, of course, they hope they could do a lot of things, but in fact, they have to change the way they teach, the way they let the children learn, and they test them. Though we had a lot of considerations which are based on a very traditional way to think about education. Well, of course, pupils still need reliable basic skills. But not only that, furthermore, they need future-orientated skills. They need skills to cope with complexity, to have the ability to work together in a co-creative way. And of course, they have to be very critical when they use content in digital media, in social media. And therefore, they need different experience. They need an early access to experience, to real participation and involvement at school. And this is the base to use artificial intelligence in their future lives in an appropriate way. So that's why we have to transform the educational system, and that's why we need this stable base in order to cope future challenges and to maintain a democratic society.
Professor Carsten Schwemmer, you are Professor for Computational Social Science at the Institute for Sociology, and you deal with big data which comes from society, all kinds of different types of people. So what does that mean? Where's the implication for the social science?
I would say it has several implications. So one of that is a great opportunity for us, right? With increasing digitization, with digital data available, we as social scientists have more data that we can actually use to learn about societies, about how people interact with each other, but also with these digital systems. There's also a negative consequences with interacting with these systems, right? Specifically when it comes to AI, there are a couple of new features that work particularly well for us. So for instance, these systems that are trained on these huge amounts of data, they have different aspects of society, of culture, embedded or embaked in their systems, right? So we can also make use of this and can use these systems to ask about these particular roles. So for instance, asking people questions is a big part of sociology, right? We sometimes need to know what people think. We cannot just observe their behavior. And as these new systems, for instance, are able to integrate a lot of context, that might be different socio-demographic perspectives, different cultural settings, and what so on, we can use these systems, for instance, to learn and to ask better questions. Another thing is we can use these new AI systems and the related data they are trained on to do just a better job for the social sciences. So for instance, one of our tasks is determining whether some content that is propagated in digital media is considered as harmful or toxic, right? And this was a task that for many, many years, it was considered almost impossible to reliably be detected via machine learning systems. It was just a human-only task. And these new systems are now getting better and better at doing these jobs and assist us to study social behavior.
Thank you. Professor Sven Nyholm, you are a professor for ethics of AI at the Faculty of Philosophy and Philosophy of Science, and obviously there are a lot of problems related to AI, ethical problems. Which are the ones you are most concerned with?
I should maybe first say that I agree with some of the previous speakers that we should not only focus on problems but also opportunities. At the same time, some of the most well-known people in the world of AI, Sam Altman, will say in his first sentence that great prosperity and abundance is around the corner, and also worries about threats from superintelligence and things like that. So yeah, Geoffrey Hinton has been mentioned as the Nobel Prize winner. Physics, he used his Nobel Prize speech at the banquet dinner. The first third of the speech was about opportunities. The second was about short-term risks with AI, misinformation, mass surveillance, spread of conspiracy theories, etc. online. And the third part of the speech was about long-term existential threats. I mean, he went so far as talking about potential beings more intelligent than human beings, and the question of can we control them. It's hard to know whether to take this seriously or not, but nevertheless, these are some of the most influential people in the world of AI, and they are talking both about the opportunities but also about the risks. And so as we push forward with AI optimism, it should ideally be a kind of responsible AI optimism and not a kind of reckless AI optimism. So, yeah, I mean, I think we should think both in terms of the risks of AI technologies that we have at the present time, but also, you know, what's around the corner, what longer-term risks are there, and we shouldn't be alarmists about this, but we should take it seriously, and we should proceed with caution. And so we should be optimists, but cautious optimists, I think.
So you mentioned some key words, the supernatural, the super intelligence, the super beings, the fears, the apocalyptic fears by Sam Altman, etc. So this brings me to you, Professor Schertl-Dentel. You hold the chair, you are the Dean of Research at the...
I have been.
Okay, well, you still know what's going on at the Faculty of Catholic Theology. So... as we just heard, some might say there are these new beings that come into play. So in what way do you believe that challenges traditional religious belief, or does it really challenge?
I would say it really does challenge, but I would like to start with a surprising phenomenon. From God's perspective, human beings are artificial intelligences because we are works of art from God's perspective, at least. So it should not surprise us that there are other kinds of works of art out there from a theological perspective. But if you go down to the details, there is a huge overlap between theology and ethics on the one side and metaphysics on the other side. So I learned a lot this evening about the language, how we approach AI, and I was surprised that so many researchers try to train AI to learn what some ethicists might call virtues. Like, to be not overconfident, that's a virtue. So this brings me back to the key question, are instances of AI new agents? And if they are agents, could they be seen as partners in God's covenant? That sounds a little bit like science fiction, but it brings us back to the problem that at least Christianity was way too anthropocentric, and we could learn, for instance, from Hinduism or Buddhism to have a broader approach and, well, to widen our definition of what it is to be a living being. So what I learned today and tonight too is that life is something that is intelligent. Life brings order to the chaos, and if that is the key of any definition of life, then artificial beings, artificial intelligence are in. And there's a second approach. I think that theology can offer some, well, resources to deal with the hopes and fears related to AI. In our Holy Scriptures, we find instances of beings that are not corporeally realized, like angels and demons. And you could decode certain narratives related to AI in using our Holy Scriptures and traditions as a decoding mechanism to get to the bottom of those fears.
Okay, so there's a lot remains to be investigated. Let me just end this round by a provocative question that maybe takes particular grip and dramatizes the research if Mr. Mehring decides to give you 1 million euros by tonight, why not? And you have to spend it, draw out a proposal to him tomorrow. What would you love to research with that money?
That's a great question. Do these 1 million euros involve having a couple of beers before to make a proper decision? In any case, 1 million euros would be a lot of money for social science research that could be well spent. I would probably ask him or the state to use this money to do a little bit of the nagging that you said we were not only supposed to do in the social sciences beforehand, because in my first answer to your question, I elaborated on the positive aspects of AI and what it can be helpful for our field, but we, or the social sciences, also take great care in investigating to what extent these systems can actually produce certain biases, right? Barbara hinted at that in her talk. There are stereotypes that can be produced by these systems. The output can be misogynistic or other things. So I would say I would use these 1 million euros to thoroughly investigate how we can develop these systems in a way that is helpful for every person, for every socio-demographic aspect that we cover, and to make sure that these systems work as they are intended.
Which might eventually save us money and make AI more useful.
Let's hope so, yes.
How about you, 1 million euros? What's the proposal?
I would use the money to enroll my actual project all over Bavaria. I have a project, it's called Minty. Minty is a project for primary school, and it's about female empowerment in primary school in the STEM field. And most of my students are female, over 90%. And they are not automatically role models in the STEM field, of course. And the little girls, already in primary school, they are less encouraged in STEM subjects than the boys because of social structures. So I would take the money, of course, to give them the experience they already have, but more students, more children. They need with creative projects in the STEM field. We have different stakeholders here in Munich. We have the TUM Makerspace, the Fab Lab, the Deutsche Museum, and many more, the Bildungswerk Bayerische Wirtschaft, and we all work together. We are pooling the expertise to create a space for the students and the little girls to work on these STEM projects, and we use artificial intelligence in a co-creative way, and there they get the skills. I hope my students will make a difference as future teachers, and the little girls, maybe like Pauline, like Eva, will be encouraged to find their way in their career, and therefore we need money. Thank you for Mr. Mehring. He's a supporter from the very first time, and I hope we will find much more. We need money, and I think it's a very important thing for future skills.
Mr. Nyholm. Yeah. What would you do?
Well, so I mean, my group in the ethics of AI is still pretty small. We have a great small team, but obviously would want to hire more young researchers. And I mean, one thing I'm very interested in at the moment is the ethics of imitation. So the generative AI technologies that we've talked about, they imitate us human beings. They can also imitate particular people. There are interesting examples of this, where it can be hard to know whether I'm talking with a particular person or an AI-generated version of them. And so I think here there are lots of risks and worries that there would be, you think that you're talking with someone, but in a job interview online on Zoom, for example, but maybe you're interviewing an AI avatar in their place, or whatever it might be. So this different ways of imitating people, I think, is very interesting. Actually, this is Alan Turing. I mean, even defined AI as the attempt to create technology that can convincingly imitate us human beings. And I think this is now coming to be a reality. Very hard now to tell, is something written? The speech that was given earlier on, I mean, we all only realized that it was written by ChatGPT when it was revealed to us. And so maybe if it wasn't revealed to us, we would all think that, yes, that was the speech written. So, yeah, imitation, the opportunities, but also the ethical worries is maybe what I would focus on.
And Professor Schertel-Dentel, I'm very curious about how you're going to investigate.
Yeah, I would say that theology has to talk to philosophy, to sit down, to develop a metaphysics of what's going on out there. I would say we need some kind of sober metaphysics, that release us of all the fears and maybe also of all the all too fantastic dreams that are out there. I was pretty impressed by a paper delivered by Sven Nyholm, who used the extended mind theory, and that could be a metaphysical road to get there. But still, it would be interesting to say more about the decoupled extended mind. So we learned about 20 years ago that our mind is not just placed under our skulls, in our brains, it can be out there in our laptops, computers, whatnot. But how is it that our minds develop steps of their own without a reference back to the origin? That's a surprising fact. And a second, more theological thing would be to bring back the notion of, I would say, the flesh. Christianity is the religion of incarnation, so where is the place of the flesh in the digital world? That would be the most interesting question for me. Or you could say Christianity upholds the idea that what we call 4E cognition is kind of right, that intelligent living and mindful beings are in active, embedded, extended, and what's the fourth part? I forgot that. Whatever it is. But that's an abbreviation for what phenomenology says is the enfleshment of human beings. And that's something that is still on the table when we talk about the bright new future of AI.
I definitely agree. I think we all do. Well, thank you very much for this short, important insight on humanities. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, it amuses me to see how seriously my colleagues of the Pantheon take themselves. But hey, let's have some fun, shall we? Let's not get too hung up on the rules. I'm Hermes, folks. Most of you probably know me as the delivery guy, and I'm indeed the messenger god. But I've got a lot of side gigs. I'm the patron of theft, as my brother Apollo can confirm, but I'm also the god of rhetoric. The legal scholars are still not sure whether they should worship me or hate me. Anyone looking to sell something? I'm your guy, god of trade. The economists definitely love me. It's a real pleasure to be the patron of basically everything on this next panel. Everybody, help me welcome LMU's smart guys.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to this panel in which we present you what and how we use AI in the faculty of economics, in the faculty of law, in the LMU Munich School of Management, as well as in the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. My name is Stefan Feuerige, and I'm starting with the LMU Munich School of Management. At our faculty, we use AI essentially in all of our research groups, chairs, institutes, as well as in teaching, because our job is to prepare the managers of the future. And they will certainly be tasked with new exercises and challenges around the use of AI. And as in that way, it's not surprising that we use AI in accounting, financial and insurance, marketing, strategy, innovation, and other technology or leadership areas. In our faculty, we use AI also in two ways. In one, we study AI as a new phenomenon, how it changes work and how it changes organizations. And in the other way, we use sometimes AI as a technology to process data that we would otherwise not be able to analyze, for example, texture data, images, and study phenomena that often have a behavior or organizational spin in a new way with rigorous mathematical methods. To give you 3 examples, let me start with the first one. And 3 examples. Well, this is a good management advice, always make it 3. So the first one is in finance, for example. We use AI to extract information from textual documents, financial market reports, and then link them to the market response. And in this research by my colleague Ralf Elsers, the idea is that with large language models, we can capture information from text in ways that wouldn't have been possible before, and do this in an automated and scalable manner. And thereby we can understand textual elements in financial market reports that are linked to profitability, funding, regulation, and can then study the market response as a result. In a second project led by Professor Thorsten Seehorn, the idea is, can we extract and analyze the sustainability efforts of companies at scale? And here the idea is that companies are nowadays mandated by law to report sustainability or to file sustainability reports that document their efforts in terms of environmental, social, and governance challenges. And with large language models, we can compile a new database that helps us understand how companies are, how active they are in driving sustainability challenges, where they are very transparent in reporting, and where we still see challenges from a sustainability point of view that policymakers will need to address in the future. And for my third project, I'm handing over to Helene Tenzer, another colleague from our faculty.
Thank you, Stefan. My work focuses on multilingual virtual teams. These are diverse teams that are crucial to innovation in today's globalized business world. But these teams often face a significant challenge, namely language barriers. Those language barriers can exclude some team members, they can create anxiety, they can inhibit trust formation, or hamper the flow of knowledge. So ultimately, the language barriers can impede team efficiency. Now, generative AI tools such as ChatGPT or Google Translate or DeepL promise to change this. They can modify, augment, or even generate messages. And in this way, they introduce a new type of communication, which is AI-mediated communication. AI-mediated communication has an immense potential. It promises to bring down language barriers, so it can make teams more inclusive, reduce language anxiety, and foster trust formation. But it is a double-edged sword. On the flip side, AI-mediated communication can exclude those who are not familiar with AI tools or who speak minority languages for which the models aren't well trained. They can create distrust and anxiety among those who fear new technologies, or they can even perpetuate harmful stereotypes, as we've heard before, if there is algorithmic bias in the training data. Also, AI tools are often not adept in capturing cultural nuances in speaking, so they can include or introduce new misunderstandings. So Stefan and I hypothesize that the future of AI-mediated communication in multilingual virtual teams comes down to 2 things. That is AI literacy of team members, their comfort, competence and confidence in using the tools, and technological advancement, so whether the algorithmic bias can be reduced and whether the models can be made more sensitive to cultural nuances in speaking. And this is where collaboration is crucial to teach AI literacy and to improve the AI tools. We need linguists, computer scientists, psychologists, organizational behavior researchers, and other disciplines coming together. And the AI-HUB at LMU is the perfect place to start this. Thank you.
So, economics. A large part of research, teaching, and policy consulting in economics over the past 20 years can be labeled evidence-based economics, using data and statistical methods to answer important economic policy challenges. And clearly, this line of research, evidence-based economics, has been transformed by AI, by giving us access to new data sources and by providing us with new methods. I have two examples here from colleagues at the IFO Institute. The first one is an important question for the economics of education. Does our German vocational training system, of which we are very proud, keep up with changes in the workplace? And so that's not an easy question to answer because there's no unified body that makes those decisions, but it's made in a decentralized way. There are over 750 different curricula for vocational training jobs. And what they do is they use natural language processing to analyze these curricula over 40 years, identify trends, changes, and they show that, yes, these curricula do adjust, at least in certain professions, to changes, digital technologies, and teamwork are now important parts of these curricula. Something that we couldn't do by hand until very recently. Another application is probably familiar to many of you. We've heard this today already. We can use remote sensing. We can use satellite pictures to measure activity. In biology, for instance, we use drones. We can also use that in economics. We can use satellite pictures to measure economic activity using, for instance, the emission of light at night. And we can use that to check whether the EU cohesion policy that funds very localized projects is actually effective. So we know where these funds go, and we can observe the outcome using remote satellite imaging. The challenge here, though, is that the EU doesn't assign these projects randomly. They put these projects where they believe that they might work or where local politicians have more influence on the decision-making process at the EU level. And that's where we as economists come in, because over the past 20 years we have developed methods that allow us to make causal statements about the effects of policy interventions in situations where there's no experiment and where we have to find randomness that we can exploit using statistical methods. New data and AI methods help us with that. But then AI is not only a method and a supplier of data, but it's also an object of study in economics. And Florian Engelmeyer and his group here in the Econ department, they work with firms, large firms here based in Munich and worldwide, to study how AI transforms the workplace. In one project that's conducted with service firms, they implement AI-based algorithms to improve firms' ability to identify skills of their workers, to identify skill demands that arise from changes in technologies, and to suggest ways how firms can reskill and upskill their workforce. A second project comes back to something that has been mentioned at the very beginning today, the industrial revolution that arises through the use of AI in manufacturing. Here, a similar problem arises to what I've just mentioned when it comes to EU funding. Big firms invest heavily in these technologies, but they don't implement them randomly. They implement them where they believe that they will have an effect. And so again, we need our methods, our statistical methods, and experiments that we implement within firms to estimate the causal impact on productivity and worker outcomes on skill demands as firms implement AI-based production. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks very much, Gitta, for putting this together. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. I represent the Faculty of Law tonight, and this is not an easy task, having heard about the need for a regulatory break earlier this evening. But it might surprise you to hear from me that I tentatively tend to agree with that demand. And this is against the background of those three research perspectives that are relevant to our law research into AI at LMU. And I would call the first of those perspectives the use of AI as a tool in the legal context. That might concern controversial examples such as the use of AI for calculating probation periods or sentencing periods. We've all heard from those examples in the US. We tend to be a little bit more cautious in that regard in Germany. However, there's of course many other fields where AI is relevant already as of today in public administration and lawmaking itself. Secondly, law undoubtedly is an existent framework for developing and using AI already as of today. And of course, wherever possible, we try to help. So that is what I would call the consultancy or advice perspective. Law faculty as a service provider. The third perspective, and that is the most interesting and closest to my heart, is that law undoubtedly is an infrastructure for shaping future innovation. So the very content of future innovation largely depends on the legal infrastructure, basically providing for the basic conditions for that innovation to develop. And against the background of those three perspectives, when collecting our activities, I was very surprised how varied our activities actually are. So a large number of colleagues is researching into AI as a tool in law, such as smart contracts and other examples you might have heard about. Also, of course, the entire crypto hype is based on legal mechanisms, largely. Then secondly, under this service provider's perspective, there is a large number of colleagues who try to help in certain areas to implement AI tools. We had a cooperative project with computational communication science with Mario Heim, Professor Mario Heim, where we helped with the legal possibilities and to overcome certain legal barriers to computational communication research in order to make it possible under an enabling perspective. And then closest to my heart is what I would call the innovation law perspective, and where actually we look into how legal infrastructures shape the future of innovation. And that concerns very practical issues, such as issues of fair data access, fair and reasonable data access, broad data access for research purposes, for example. That concerns issues such as the guarantee of workable competition in the AI field, thus shaping new and smarter antitrust law and regulation tools. And that also concerns, of course, namely the development of smarter tools in the protection of personal data that are lesser barriers to research in the AI field. And that is not a theoretical ivory tower issue. It is this very research perspective that has earned us, for example, a call to a position as a Max Planck director at the Max Planck Institute for Innovation and Competition, exactly that perspective in the last year. And actually, when we made the decision to stay at LMU, of course, this wasn't just about hard factors, finances, infrastructures, the proverbial million. It was also about having an environment that is very lively, vivid, and inspiring. And the AI Hub actually has contributed to that. So thanks very much, Gitta. Thanks very much to everyone. And I hand over to Dominic. Thank you.
So, good evening. Dominic, the Managing Director of the LMU Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center speaking. So we are the ones that support the LMU in unleashing the transformative powers of science in order to drive innovation, technology transfer, and societal change. And if you take a broader look, and I think we saw that today with all our 18 faculties being present here, all those faculties harbor a huge potential for societal change, for technology transfer, and also for civic engagement. And by the way, did you know that 80% of the science-based startups that go through our incubation program actually acquire public or private funding? That is quite amazing and quite a good quota, but admittedly, we are still speaking of a very small number of actual startups, but actually we want to change that and harvest throughout the university to make this a bigger cohort. And we've actually been going through our portfolio and putting AI in all our activities. So we have AI modules in our foundational courses where we teach innovation and entrepreneurship. We've put up boot camps with AI-related fields, and for instance, in the medicine area, or we did a boot camp together with the MCML on food. We also take an AI perspective in our research on looking at what does actually AI transform within organizations and how do we need to reshape our visions of the organization of the future. We actually take all our incubation startups through an AI module, and also we've been spanning out our ecosystem in order to actually find AI-savvy organizations as the MCML that help us in thriving and also develop our goals. And to make, or to come back to what Stefan told you earlier, to have 3 ideas or 3 points that we close with is, the first thing is the AI-HUB and the LMU Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center together can expand transfer and innovation throughout the LMU. Then we together want to find funds, reliable funds, to service our LMU community in order to make more transfer activities. And then we are trying to institutize a dedicated innovation space that can catalyze solutions for sustainable society and a better future. And also we have a stand outside, so whenever you leave this room and you're interested, please come along and have a little chat with our colleagues at our stand. Thank you very much.
So as much as I love this room, I think it's way too dark here, so whoever can turn on the light is welcome to turn on the lights for now. I also think we miss a fireplace, and that's where we actually would like to sit with all of you in a moment. The virtual fireplace outside, it will get warm enough outside when enough people will be standing there. We certainly have enough food out there to make you warm. But before I invite you to that, I'm delighted to introduce to you Hal Daum III, who is visiting from the University of Maryland, us today and yesterday, and maybe a couple of more days here in Munich, but is this semester at Sorbonne University, and therefore we had the chance to have him here. And you already read on the program, he's professor for computer science and linguistics at the University of Maryland. He funded there a center that has a remarkable similarity to our AI-HUB, but the inception was completely different. And if you want to know more about that, keep our conversation in mind, but also here's other talents, as I learned earlier, rock climbing being one of them, and I'm seeing Josef Brüder here in the audience, so there other topics are allowed as well. Hal, when you funded, or when you had the idea for the AI Interdisciplinary Institute in Maryland, what sparked that? What was your vision how that could work? I mean, we are at the beginning, and even so this might feel like it's the end of a long graduation ceremony, but we're at the beginning of this endeavor, and of course we wanted to succeed. What was your starting point, and what would you say went well?
Yeah, so first, thanks for having me. It's really an honor to be here speaking to such an amazing group of people. I also know I'm what's standing between food and me, so I'll try not to be too long-winded. I think actually what I really wanted to see at Maryland is very similar to what I've been hearing all night here. And the way that I've been thinking about it is that, you know, there's this immense amount of AI development happening. And I think one of the really core questions for us as an AI field is to figure out how to get AI systems to sort of do good, to be good for humanity, to be good for society, and to, you know, sort of promote the sort of future of humanity that we'd like to see. And these are questions that engineers and computer scientists like me have generally not studied. They're questions that the humanities and the social sciences have studied for decades or centuries, for as long as many of these fields have been around. And I think that universities, broadly speaking, are really the only place where these questions can be answered, because big tech companies, for all of the money and all of the work that they're putting into developing AI models, they're full of engineers like me, and they're not full of the humanists and the social scientists and everyone else that we've heard from tonight who's interested in thinking about, how these models can actually serve the sort of needs that we have. So that's what I really want to see at Maryland, and I'm getting the sense that there's a very similar vibe here in terms of, this broad role that really every discipline can play.
And you said earlier when we chatted preparing for this that you're envisioning the Institute in Maryland to work as a fabric, as a connector of existing projects, of existing initiatives. Presumably some of them are with tech and government and industries, not just connected within Maryland, but in the environment around it. Can you give us some example for such impactful fabric networking projects?
Sure. I mean, one that I'm really excited about is, so AIM has the goal of connecting AI across campus, but it also has 4 research pillars that we're really trying to push. And the idea is that we can't sort of be everything to everyone. We don't want to end up with 100 pebbles strewn across a beach. We want to build competence based on strengths that Maryland has. So the 4 pillars that we have are around AI for accessibility and aging, around AI for sustainability, around AI for social justice, and around AI for learning. And so I'll just pick one of these to answer your question. So within the AI for accessibility space, in the US, there's the National Federation of the Blind. The National Federation of the Blind is actually based in Baltimore, Maryland, which is about a 45-minute drive from us. We've had a relationship with the NFB for 20 or 30 years as a university, but never from sort of an AI perspective. And the person who runs the NFB is President Rico Bono. And in talking to him, one of the things that he's really excited about is the opportunity for AI to reduce the sort of societal disability that's placed on people who are blind or who have low vision, while simultaneously being concerned about all of the issues that the panel was not supposed to talk about. I think this is an example of a really cool partnership that we can build with an organization that's not an AI organization at its heart, but where AI can really play a role in, hopefully furthering the benefit of a large segment of our society.
Now, the benefit there is clear, and I guess people have sort of a helping motivation that are involved in this. But one thing that I always wondered with these large endeavors, and wonder here, is like, what is the other connector besides money? And we're a grassroots organization, as Gitta mentioned earlier, so there is no money. This is all coming out of our own pockets, what we do. So how do you incentivize people across disciplines to work together when their disciplinary incentives are very different? Everyone has their own journals, everyone has their own conferences, and it gets harder to negotiate. How do you crack that nut?
Yeah, this is a really hard question. Interdisciplinary research is hard. It's especially hard in universities. I suspect German universities are somewhat different than US universities, but also probably largely the same, that we kind of live in our silos and don't necessarily talk to each other. An example of this that came up recently is we have a seed grant program, and one of my colleagues from computer science was talking to a colleague in classics about a potential project, and they were talking about what could be deliverables or outcomes of this project that they could report back. And my colleague in computer science, was thinking like, we'll write some papers. And the colleague in classics was thinking, we'll create a course. And those are two very different outcomes, and my colleague in computer science is completely uninterested in creating a course. Like, she has enough courses to teach as it is. And so, I think that, first we have to recognize that, there's just different reward systems, right? Like, I've actually had a hard time engaging faculty in law school because the usual incentive mechanisms like PhD students or summer salary simply don't apply to at least the way law schools work in the United States. So, I think we first have to accept that. And then, honestly, I think it's just you have to be creative, right? You have to set it up first so that no one loses, right? So one of the things that we're doing in hiring is anytime someone's hired that's going to be affiliated with AIM, they will have a home department that's disciplinary, but will have an agreement with that department that dictates terms of like their promotion and their tenure and so on, so that they don't end up in this situation where they feel like, oh, I have to do this thing to do tenure, but then I have to do this other thing to make these other people happy. And so, I see our job as largely protecting faculty from the sort of disciplinary challenges that you can get, and then hopefully by like removing those barriers, they're able to do the interesting work. But I don't think there's a single easy answer.
Seed grant program sounds like there is money after all.
We do have money, yes.
Just, wherever the funding pockets might be, and maybe the folks from the Münchner Universitätsgesellschaft will continue their generous offerings to us. But you mentioned courses, and we do have as part of our mission teaching as well, as we've heard earlier, and Fabian actually mentioned this as well, that, I guess he revealed that dirty secret that we all know, right? That the work only happens if you have good students that make it happen. So what I thought was interesting in reading through your proposal of AIM and is that you really emphasize creating a curriculum that works for all and, bachelor students starting in their first semester, right? Freshmen, as you call them. So what is a success strategy? That's a big thing to straddle from freshmen in computer science to freshmen in, theology studies.
Yeah. So I can give an example. So I actually taught such a class last spring. I taught a class on generative AI. It was for freshmen from any unit on campus. And, I think one of the things that's really amazing, and this came up in some of the discussions earlier around democratizing AI, is that you actually don't need to be a computer scientist now to use AI in a reasonable way. And that's something that was just absolutely not true even like 2 years ago. And so, I personally believe that if you're going to do interesting work with AI, you need to understand something about how it works. And so in the class that I taught, the first third was, I'll say roughly technical material around how AI systems work, but also from the perspective that, these are students who won't necessarily have had calculus or any programming whatsoever. And so, you have to do a fair amount of work to, make analogies and things like that, but I don't actually think it's that hard nowadays. I think the thing that is a challenge is that I want to teach, and I want our programs to teach generalizable knowledge. I don't want to teach, this is the flavor of the month, and here's how you get ChatGPT to work. That's just not interesting. That's not going to help prepare students 4 years down the road when they get a job. And so I think this is the thing that we're struggling with, is figuring out, like, okay, what is the difference between the sort of tricks that are useful now but won't be useful in 6 months, and the things that they really need to know. And so, things like, verifying information has come up. One thing that I don't think came up, but I think is increasingly an issue, is like accidental plagiarism by using AI models. I think there's a lot of these sorts of things that are not going to go away as challenges. And so I think that's the sort of thing that we need to teach.
Great. With an eye on the time, I have a last question for you. And if you look at the development in the US on AI, and you look at the development globally, and reflect on the words that we heard earlier by our politician here, on the role of Europe in this whole universe, what would be your suggestion, your outlook on Europe, you know, your intuition, what a university like us here should focus on can contribute to where you see barriers in your own home turf, where you think it's like we're not working well here in that field.
It's a tough question. I'll go back to something that was mentioned earlier, which is the strength in sort of the basic sciences that you see in Europe, whereas, you know, I think, you know, maybe one thing that works slightly better in the US is the tech transfer piece, right? And like Barbara was talking about this with the creation of transformers, right? So basically everything up until transformers had happened in an academic setting. And then, you know, the role of industry, at least as I see it in the United States, is to get the basic science to scale. And really what transformers did was it got the basic science to scale. And then once that happened, industry sort of took over. And so, you know, to me, I see that as a success story, right? Like academia played its role, we created the basic technology, and then the scaling question was handled by industry, which is something that academia is not well suited to do. So, I mean, I was actually really encouraged by like so many of the examples of the different things that people were working on across the different units, because you know, these were largely projects that, you know, really build on sort of I'm going to keep using sciences, but not just basic sciences, but basic research, basic humanities, and so on, in interesting ways. And so, you know, I think that no university, whether it's in the US or Europe, is going to build, you know, GPT-5. That's just not a game that we can play in. We need to play in fields where we actually have a competitive advantage. And so that's why, you know, going back to what I said at the beginning, I think that our competitive advantage is the fact that we are these interdisciplinary bodies with vast expertise across lots of areas.
Great. And I declare you hereby an honorary German because we managed to end on time, and I invite all of you to now join us for a celebration outside with foods and drinks and hopefully interesting continued discussions. Thank you very much.